How many of you are new to, great, welcome. So we broadcast these events online as well, that's why I'm doing all that. And so if you have any questions, we pass around the mic so that the people online can also hear. It's not really to amplify the sound in here because we can hear you just fine. So we'll be doing an energy transfer. Are any of you totally unfamiliar with that? Never watched it online or anything? No? Okay, all right. Okay, so we'll give you a little bit of background. But anyway, we'll do that, the energy transfer, about halfway through. And between here and there, we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the world and tell you a little bit of our backgrounds and what brought us to this point. And as far as the organization is concerned, so this organization is called Flower of Life Institute. And we've been here in Michigan for the last, 6-7 years or something like that. And we started out just doing local events in our local area at the public library and expanded out from there. And so we do events about once a month here in this particular venue. And we also have a conference that we put on in Detroit, downtown Detroit, every year, so which is a 3-day event, a consciousness-based event where we bring in lots of speakers, like Barb will be there, of course, and Michaela, and but a lot of other people who we bring in from all over the world to speak on a variety of subjects. But it's really a very high vibrational experience. So we have attendees who travel in from all over the world to be there to experience that event. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out at awakenedempoweredexpo.com. We do a kids event, so ultimately we're planning on launching a K-12 school for kids. It's a little bit more advanced than what's out there today, and we're slowly moving in our various stages of that. And at the moment we have a weekend in wizardry, which is kind of like a 3-day kids camp that we put on every year, where we teach them things like hands-on healing, animal communication, telekinesis, telepathy, channeling, those kind of things. And so that is taking place this summer, and then the expo is in the fall. We also have an ongoing kids conscious youth program, which is basically an online education program, and that we bring in teachers online, and kids all over the world join. It's a free thing we do, and where we bring in teachers, and we also let the kids meet each other and share their experiences and so on. So a lot of the similar teachers we bring into that, like Barb's taught an aura class, and Zane just taught a class as well just the other day. Zane's coming up next, by the way. We do have what we call a light worker program, where we work with individuals to help them transition from a more mainstream life path to something that's much more high vibrational, sort of a fifth dimensional aspect of themselves. So he'll tell his story more later on. It's a very interesting journey he's had and how he's brought his gifts forth into the world. So every month or so, holidays we didn't do anything last month, but we'll have somebody new here in our lineup at the end of the day who is brand new in this in some sort of a consciousness-based field and doing something really extraordinary and unique. So next month also we have something on the schedule. Any questions about any of that? Okay. If you're interested in, helping at the expo or anything like that, or joining our team that plans all of these things, just let us know, and we can make some, we can let you know how to get involved in whatever way you would prefer to do that. So what we're going to do here today is an energy transfer, and that'll be, we'll do it in about 45 minutes or so, and we'll talk a little bit about what that is and what it entails. And Barb also is going to share a bit of her journey and her role in this process as well. So what an energy transfer is and what you're here for, whether you've experienced this before or not, is so it's going to be a consciousness-based event. And some years ago I met Barb, and she'll tell you her version of the story, and it was really the impetus for me to step on this path and to do this. And really, since then, the organization that we now oversee has grown, and the expo and all of the other things that have happened started in that moment of doing that first energy transfer event at the Troy Public Library here in Michigan. And initially, it was just purely an experiment. Now, I come from a very mainstream background, I was a professional trader. I ran an international trading organization, so helping individuals in brokerage houses and also just individuals who are more professional in their investment strategies, helping them to invest in the markets. And so back before I met Barb, that's what I was doing. I also owned a marketing agency. So I come from a very business, entrepreneurial, financial background. And at the end of that period of my life, I had a significant spiritual awakening that in the moment that it occurred, all of these perspectives of things that I wanted to do next in my life came out. And so, and at that point, that life that I was living pretty much disintegrated, fell apart to where I had no choice really but to go in a new direction. So that's really what started this journey for me. And a few years later, or a couple of years later, I met Barb, and which prompted me to take a look at my life and realize that a lot of very unusual things had happened that my former rational intellectual self couldn't really explain, and I just sort of put those things on the shelf. I'm sure many of you have experienced things like that. And but when I met her, I decided to take those things seriously, and that there must be something there that I need to explore. And that was why we did our very first event. And the first event, and this is what we're going to do here today, what we did, and so Barb can see energy fields very well, and I've met a lot of people. Nowadays, I'm surrounded by really extraordinary, gifted people in all different areas, from children to adults. Some of the people in our Lightworker program are in their 20s, and some are in their 70s. So quite a broad range of age groups and talents, but really extraordinary people. And they're all coming from very mainstream, conventional backgrounds, from people in the medical profession, nurses, to hedge fund managers, to geneticists, all kinds of fields of work that you would not expect that people are in, that are wanting to go in a more spiritually based direction. But this is what we're seeing in the world right now, is that the global consciousness is expanding so fast that people from all walks of life and all mindsets are starting to wake up one day and can't go back to their former lives anymore. So they're moving forward in a different direction. At our expo last year or the year before, I can't remember which one, but I think you spoke with, we had a Hollywood producer there, right?
Oh, yeah. Year before, yeah.
Yeah, so who's produced a very well-known show that some of you probably watched, and she sort of anonymously came to the expo, didn't want anyone to know she was there, but these are the kind of individuals that are having these kind of experiences. One of the people in my Lightworker program makes $1 million a year as a hedge fund manager, sold it, gave up his life, downsized his life, moved into a small apartment, and has decided to go in a more spiritually based direction. So these are the kind of individuals that are going through this kind of awakening experience, not just those of us who are standing on the fringe and who've been walking this path for a while. So there is hope for humanity. And if you see those kind of changes happening on that level, then it must be happening everywhere, from the governmental level to, all those areas. But the thing is, those individuals are not out there in public talking about it, because they are living in a mainstream world and they're transitioning, and everybody they know is mainstream minded. So they're not exactly going to go out into the world and admit those things. That's why you don't hear about it. It's not because it's not happening. It's because they have no one to share it with yet, and they're just starting to find their families. So now we're heading into a period of time in the next decade, in the 2020s, which I refer to as the Age of Aquarius, which we've been talking about the Age of Aquarius for a long time. But in the 2020s, in 2022, Pluto enters Aquarius and will stay there till 2045. And in my perspective, and I've studied astrology for 26, 27 years now, that's when we're really going to start seeing the Age of Aquarius manifest here in a much more accelerated way than we've experienced. Now, Aquarius is representative of the people, so it's a more people-centered, community-based society, much more humanitarianism and peace and so on. But Aquarius also represents technological breakthroughs and innovation, and we're going to see huge breakthroughs in technology, humanitarianism, people working together in more of a community-based society, and whereas now Pluto's in Capricorn, which gives more power to the system and the authorities, Aquarius gives power back to the people. So from the 2020s to mid-2040s, we are going to see an increase in society where people are actually going to be the ones in power and in control. So it's a really exciting time, and I think that's why a lot of you are here, and a lot of the people I'm seeing in very mainstream backgrounds are transitioning at this time to a much higher vibrational lifestyle and way of expressing their talents in the world, is because we are the pioneers who are moving into this future, and we're preparing for all of the other people who are going to be transitioning into a much higher vibrational way of being in the 2020s and beyond. When the 2020s come, it's going to happen at an accelerated pace. So whereas now it's just sort of trickling, there are just a few people here and there who are starting to, but it's building in momentum all the time. So you are the pioneers. You are here to usher in that new age. And of course, that's also why a lot of the children are coming in who are so advanced these days. In our various kids programs, we see some really talented, brilliant children who are doing amazing things already that we as children weren't doing, and even as adults, their capacity is far beyond ours. So these children are brilliant. They're they're capable of so much, but they don't really see a reason to step up yet. Now, I've studied astrology for a long time, and many of these children who are born, who are now going to be, now in their 20s or will be in their 20s in this next decade, they were born with certain elements in their astrology charts that are going to be activated in the 2020s and 2030s and so on. When that happens, they are going to wake up, and that's when they're going to really step up and be part of that revolution of the age of Aquarius that we see. So for now, they're very much asleep, or a lot of them are, not all of them, but I don't think that's going to be the case long term. And the other thing too is that you may not realize is it's the millennials who are pioneering the cryptocurrency movement. So if you're unaware of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, it's a people-centered movement, and it's changing the whole economic system, the whole financial system, the global currency system. All of that is in the process of major change right now, and it is that age group that's primarily involved in that movement right now. So in the next 10 years, we may have a new global reserve currency, and it may not be the US dollar. Well, it probably won't be. It already is starting to not be the US dollar. It'll probably be a cryptocurrency that is started by the people. It could be Bitcoin, hard to say. But in any case, it is that age group that started that movement. And it is that age group that is, it's hard to say who started Bitcoin. We don't really know. But it is the 20-year-old age group that is primarily involved in cryptocurrency. And a lot of those, brilliant geniuses who are the ones who are launching many currencies right now. So it is happening, and you just may not know because you're not noticing all of those things. And certainly if you watch mainstream media, you're going to miss all of that because that news is not there. So, but anyway, it's an amazing time we're living in. So why we're here today is we are here to help you on your journey to accelerate your process of growth, to help you to move forward in your spiritual journey and remove whatever blocks are in your way to expressing your full potential in this incarnation. So what that means is you'll be able to move a little quicker toward being one of those pioneers, expressing your spiritual gifts and potential, and being one of the individuals who is an agent of change in this world that we're heading into, as opposed to suffering through it and kicking and screaming like most people are. So often our suffering comes from the density that we're carrying in our energy field, and that density may come from experiences in this incarnation. It may come from things you've brought forth from previous incarnations. It could be that you're living in environments that are very toxic. All those things are oftentimes will remain in your energy field. And so when those are there, it can make your human experience more difficult and cause more suffering. So our goal here today is to remove as much of that as we can, and also to raise your vibration and consciousness so that you can access higher aspects of yourself and be able to function in this reality from a broader perspective. So what that means when I say karmic density is, so karma may be something from a past life or earlier in this life. The density is the vibration that's attached to that karma. So let's say, for example, you are with a soulmate in this life, and maybe you're in a relationship with that person, and you've been with that person in other incarnations. That I would use the word karma to describe. Now, Eastern philosophies may have slightly different vantage points, but I'm going to give you a definition so you understand how I'm using it. So karma is the fact that you're repeating an experience with somebody you've been with before. The density is, let's say in another incarnation you were with this person and some sort of trauma occurred between the two of you, and that trauma placed a dense vibration in your energy field and your partner's. And now you're here again together, and that density is still there. And so you meet again in this life, and you cause nothing but chaos and grief for each other. And you don't know why, but you do. You know, one person wants to be the other person runs away, and everybody's just suffering and miserable. We see that a lot in soulmate relationships. And the reason for that is because of the density. So if you remove the density from those individuals, now they can coexist and choose whether they want to be together or not without all of that drama and suffering that exists between the two of them. So when we remove density, it makes our lives lighter, more joyful. It brings opportunities that we didn't realize were there. So we're going to do some of that, and we're also going to elevate your consciousness so you have access to information, and information meaning multidimensional information that you did not have before. What that looks like is some of your spiritual gifts you didn't know might come back, that you didn't know you had or that you had as a child. It could be that I should say a little disclaimer, which I always have to say before we do this process is a lot of people that do energy transfers do break up with their boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives. So if you don't want to divorce your partner, you should leave before we start.
I'm single, so I'm good.
Okay, good, perfect. Single people are welcome. So now the reason for that, it doesn't have to happen in every case, but the reason it does happen a lot around, and it's people who are in the energy transfer or people who are just around me a lot, is because when your vibration accelerates or your consciousness grows at a rapid pace, those who are around you, if they're not keeping up in some way of their own or also participating in this, so if their consciousness isn't growing equal to yours, your vibrations won't match anymore. And so the result is that they can't coexist with you in the same reality. It's just like somebody asked in Michaela's channeling, when we move to a fifth dimension, what happens to everybody who doesn't? They don't just fall off the earth, but they cease to exist in your reality. So, we can have the fifth and a fourth dimension or fifth and a third dimension coexisting. We already have that coexisting. For example, what Barb does and Zane and Michaela, they're not entirely functioning in a third dimension, and I'm sure most of you are not either. But you still every once in a while see people who are still existing in a third dimension, but for the most part, your world is different. Me, for example, my life is entirely here. So my whole world is surrounded by the people like you guys. And so on a day-to-day basis, I have conversations and experiences that are kind of far out and weird. You know, I have, every day of my life now, I'm talking to people about extraterrestrials or channeling or telekinesis or telepathy or things of that nature, which are not normal, right, in the third dimensional sense. But this is my normal. And sometimes sometimes I have to shift a little bit, and I come back to my former third dimensional self for a moment, and I think, is this life real? Am I really doing this? Because it seems a little strange. I mean, it's not normal, right? But this is my normal life, and I talk to normal people who have normal careers who are actually having the same kind of experiences all the time. So we are living in this world right now where there are multiple realities coexisting. Now, every once in a while, I have to go to the Secretary of State, and you know what that's like, right? That's about as third dimensional as you can get. And then when I go into those worlds, it's like I just stepped off a spaceship into another planet, because it's just so bizarre to me now, because that's not the world I live in most of the time. So that's what it's going to be like as we transition to a fifth dimensional world. There are going to be some people who will still stay in the third, and there are going to be a lot of people who are in the fifth who occasionally have to visit the third, like on holidays when you go see your family, and so on, right? I'm sure many of you visited the third dimension this Christmas and Thanksgiving, right? So you know what that's like. So that's what we're in, is we're in this pivotal shift of consciousness that's been predicted for thousands of years would happen now. And it really is happening. I can tell you because I'm walking and living in that world most of the time. And it's a little weird for me sometimes to think that it really is happening, but it really is, because either that or I'm very delusional, which we can't rule that out entirely. But anyway, we're here today to help you to make that shift and that leap a little bit easier, so that you don't have to suffer and go through the difficulties of the density, because what's happening is the Earth is transitioning very quickly right now, and those who have a lot of density will be releasing it one way or the other. And if you do it slowly, over time, it's going to be more difficult, and you're going to see a lot of people going through a lot of difficulty in the next couple of years, because we are heading into some more challenging planetary alignments, in particular of a financial nature. So some of you who follow the financial markets may know that they've been a bit unstable lately. And so financial may be one way that people experience this turbulence, but there's no need for that. So the end result of the process here today is you'll find that your journey through life becomes a little easier, and that you will have access to parts of yourself that you may not have known were there, which will give you the tools to move forward and live a more fulfilling life, more in alignment with why you're here. So now I'm going to let Barb talk a bit about her story and journey, and then we'll come back to how this process works, and then we'll do that. And for those of you who are joining online, you can participate remotely just as well. This process works as well live over video, and even a lot of these events are recorded and we put them out on YouTube eventually, and people use the videos from these events also to facilitate the same process. And if you read the comments in the videos, people are having the same kind of experiences from going through this. So, that's another thing that is changing, is our perception of time and time and space. So we can do this event here live right now, and somebody can watch the video of it 6 months from now, and it's as if they're here. So it doesn't make any difference that space and time is not a factor in how the process works. So anybody have any questions so far before we continue? Yeah.
So in the last part, they talked about timelines, and I think I kind of get what they're talking about. Can you go into a little bit more detail about what they are talking about by timelines and jumping them?
You're talking about Michaela when she channeled?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I didn't get a
timelines.
chance to ask that before we ended.
Gotcha. All right, so timelines, thank you, Sam. Timelines are, well, from our normal human third-dimensional perspective, a little hard to understand, but imagine, so all things that will ever be or that ever have been are all happening now. So everything and every version of your incarnation, so every incarnation you've ever had throughout experience of the universe is happening in this moment. So all of your past lives are coalescing into this moment. All of your future lives are coalescing into this moment. Everything coexists. So, and also many versions of this reality also exist. So every time you make a significant decision or have a thought to go in another direction, quite often it results in a new direction. But your conscious perception of which reality you're experiencing is based on your consciousness and level of awareness. So for example, if we do an energy transfer today, which we will do, and we elevate your consciousness significantly and remove density, what will happen is you may find yourself going in a life direction that you had not anticipated or even thought about before. Essentially what happened is you shifted timelines. So let me give you an example of so we had somebody, I had somebody in my Lightworker program that I worked with, and she was, and this happens with many people in many different ways, but this is a really good example. So she was in the medical field, a geneticist, and that was her career path. She was very successful in it. And of course, going through the Lightworker program, she went through many energy transfers. And well, now she's using, so through the process, she developed these new talents and abilities. And so now she's actually developed this brand new healing modality that's based on genetics, but using vibrational tones and working with multidimensional collectives. So on the one hand, we have somebody who is functioning third-dimensionally on a third-dimensional timeline as a geneticist in the mainstream world, and a shift in consciousness and timeline caused her to, obviously she came into this world to be a healer, but what was not decided was what kind of healer. So a third-dimensional healer might be a medical doctor, a higher dimensional healer might be a vibrational healer of some sort. So when timelines shift, you will find yourself maybe doing the same thing that you were doing before, but at a higher level. And it'll give you access to knowledge, and you may even, have you heard, any of you heard about the Mandela Effect? That's kind of, any of you not heard of it? Okay, a couple, okay. So this is something that's been going on the last couple of years. Mandela Effect is, people are having memories of things that have heard and that have happened in popular culture that are different from what they actually are. So for example, how many of you watched Snow White? Ever? No, nobody? None of you watched Snow White? Okay. All right. So did she say "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all"? Who remembers that? The queen. Yeah. Anybody not remember that? Okay, look it up online. That's not actually what she said. It's "Magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all." Do any of you remember that? No? Right. Right. Yeah. So there are a lot of things like that where we have a recollection of one version of reality that actually isn't the reality we're living in now. So the Mandela Effect is there are a lot of things in popular culture that we actually remember because we were actually in a different timeline when those things happened, and we've since shifted timelines to a version of reality where those things didn't happen. And there's so many examples of it, that's just one, where we have a memory of it being one way, but go look, you rent, VHS tapes from 20 or 30 years ago, it will not be "Mirror, mirror on the wall." So, but we remember it, right? And there are a lot of other things like that. I can't remember some of the other ones, but Star Wars ones. Oh, Star Wars. I don't know if all of you guys would be as remember that one as well, but was it Luke? I am your father. Luke, I am your father, right? Any of you remember that? Luke, I am your father. Luke, I am your father. Right? Okay, it's kind of like that. Anyway, that's not what he said, right? He just said, No, I'm your father. Yeah, and I remember Luke, I'm your father. I wasn't a big Star Wars fan, but I watched the movie much later. But
It's a meme even, I think, the Luke, I am your father.
it's a what?
A meme.
Yeah, it's a meme. Yeah, it's a meme now. Yeah, but those of us who remember the original movies, we remember hearing it that way.
Isn't it the reason why they call it the Mandela Effect is because a lot of people remember Nelson Mandela dying and having the funeral, which I remember, and then all of a sudden he's alive?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one is his actual death. Many people remember him as having died a long time ago when he just died recently. There are many examples like that. So what we can say is, on a collective consciousness level, in the last couple of years, we shifted timelines. And because this all happened a couple of years ago, all of a sudden people were remembering other versions of reality, other versions of things that they grew up with that didn't actually happen that way. There are lots of, I looked into this for a little while, there were lots of children's TV shows that I used to watch when I was a child that, like the jingles, I forget, there was a jingle from one of the shows I used to watch when I was a child, which is totally different, and there's no way it was that way when I was a child. So if you look into Mandela Effect, you'll find that. So timeline shifts are occurring all the time, and what they result in is many of us have memories of a version of reality that didn't actually happen in this reality that we're now walking. Now, timelines are continually shifting, though, now. So we're constantly moving into different versions. Now, another example I want to give you is we are, our vibration as a collective is continuing to elevate. And as it's happening, a lot of ancient civilization information is starting to come forth again. For example, discoveries of Atlantis and a lot of things like that are now starting to come into the mainstream. And I think the reason for that is because we're starting to match the vibration closer and closer of those ancient civilizations. Because they had the capacity to build structures and technology that even now we're just barely starting to develop. And so part of the reason why that's occurring, I think, is we're sort of heading back into a future that is very much advanced like in the past, not only in consciousness, but also in technology. Just recently, and I don't know what truth there is to this, because sometimes you watch things on YouTube and you don't really know, but it was a reputable YouTube channel, and the guy was sharing some information about the ancient records of Atlantis were discovered, and some scientists are starting to translate them. Now, it would make sense if we're moving into an age of Aquarius, which is a very Atlantean society, that maybe information on Atlantis would come forth. And I am finding all of a sudden, everybody's finding information about Atlantis everywhere. So we are shifting timelines, and as that occurs, we are going to find that the things that we didn't think were possible in the past are going to become possible. We're going to find ourselves living in a reality that we didn't think was going to happen right now. So I don't know if that answers the question on timelines a bit. Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Any questions? Okay. I think I talked too long, but Barb, go ahead and...
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about that too. Now, in the 80s, let's see, these 80s, I think it was in the 80s that I learned that what I call glowing was called an aura. And then I developed that, and I became an aura reader. And I mean, I read a bunch of different people's auras and helped them along with their timelines then. But I wasn't one to just, keep them say, okay, and now next week you got to come because something else might do different. I mean, I wasn't like that at all. So, but that was like a beginning, of a beginning of awakening. People wanted to see auras. We had a Phenomenon news paper that, told about different events that were going on. So there was like, people were starting to awaken to there's different things going on around, and I think that was like, I really think that was a kickoff of a growth, you know, the beginning of growth, because the 70s, I didn't really remember anything like that. It was more, we were recovering from the 60s, the hippie stuff, and, you know, and going on to hard rock and, you know, and all that stuff. I mean, I lived all those areas. But the 80s was when I realized that what I call glowing was an aura. And, you know, I told people, you know, that I was going to a therapist, and she had something on the wall, and there was a little mouse moving around and on the wall, and I was laughing at it. And she said, "What are you laughing at?" And I told her, and she said, "Well, that was an aura." Well, I never heard the word. So then I read about it, and a famous lady named Barbara Bowers from California came to Detroit, and she saw that I saw him too, and she hauled me from the back of the class and had me stand next to her, and she taught me right then about auras and the colors and that, and I've got all her information, and I kind of moved on. And, you know, I didn't really do too much about it, but in 2000s is I had a door closed. You know, the person that I cared about most in the world passed away, and then I was kind of floating around a little bit, and, you know, I got this paper that says, "When God closes a door, he opens a window." So, you know how synchronicity, you know, you've heard that. I had a day where I wanted to go get gas at the gas station. I mean, you know, but let's get the dishes washed first. Don't mop the floor, and you better dust over here. It just was, you know, a little this and a little that. And all of a sudden it said, "Go to that gas station right now, drop everything." Okay, jumped in the car. I had a PT Cruiser at the time, and I went to this gas station. And I saw another PT Cruiser, same color, same everything, only it had a trailer hitch on the back. And that voice says, "If you don't talk to that person, you're always going to regret it." I went over. I'm like, I always go and talk to, "Hey, Green World, you wouldn't know I want to talk to you." No, I don't do that. But that day I did. And through that person, they, you know, I got to know them, and then they invited me to a raw food potluck, and I said, "Well, it's not raw meat, is it?" And they said, no, it's fruit and vegetables and nuts and stuff like that, and they mix it up different ways. And I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. So I'm going in there, and when I'm really in an environment that's out of my, you know, comfort zone, I turn into a turtle, and I'm going in there with this little turtle, you know, and seeing all this food, these people. But I noticed everybody was so happy, and I'm thinking, I don't believe it's the food, you know. So, but I did notice there quite a bit of happiness. So I went and I tried the different foods. They explained what they had in them and everything. So I tried the different foods. And then I looked around and I saw him. I says, "I got to talk to that guy. What's his name?" I said, "Why do you got to talk to him?" "I just have to talk to him." So I went over to him and I says, "Oh my God, you have the largest aura I have ever seen." And I only knew one spiritual master at that time. I mean, it was still the baby steps, you know. Gandhi. I knew Gandhi for sure. I mean, I knew that I'd gone to some ashrams and stuff, but do you think I could remember any of their names? No. So I told him that, and I says, "Your aura is just so huge." So anyway, he thought, well, that's pretty powerful. So he went and tested me, and he was, one of the things he did is, not only did I see him as a little kid at 9 years old with his huge aura, but he was showing me all these gurus and spiritual masters, and he says after a while they all look the same, and I'm thinking, well, you know, I was telling the different colors, and I was consistent. I think he probably ran them back and forth 3 or 4 times. I don't know. But I was consistent, and you know, he believed that I really was seeing what I was seeing. So, like you said, we started in Troy, you know, and we had some miraculous things happen. It wasn't his intent, but somebody got rid of their medication, and somebody else healed. And, you know, you just never know what's going to happen on an energy transfer. You know, different people have different intents. So, and then I just, you know, I'm here and I watch the energy and the aura in the room, and I watch it shift. And when Michaela's on, sometimes I see all her guides. There's like it's like you know, a jury box where they sit in the rows. They'll be in rows here, like sitting in rows, you know, looking at, you know, it's, you know, like they're in the audience and being supportive. So it's kind of cool. So anyway, I don't know how much time we have. I tried to do it as short as fast as I could.
Well, the rest is history. So
Yeah.
Got a question online. Please clarify. I thought that Michaela's guides told us that density was acquired to any given in any given lifetime and not brought from the past. It's a good question. Actually, that is true. So to clarify, there's no need for a soul to bring density forth from another incarnation. The only way to do that is to align with that in this incarnation. So the density may exist in another incarnation, and by your alignment with it, it can be interconnected to this one. So, but it's not required that just because you might have suffered or had trauma in another incarnation that you must bring it forth into this one and suffer again. But if you choose to bring that in or to be in alignment with that vibrationally, then yes, of course, it will be here. So it's hard to say, you know, some people do that. And that's why they suffer in, for example, relationships with other people that they've been with before, or situations that they've been in before. So it does occur like that, but it's not always required. You could have suffered with a soulmate in another incarnation and come into this one and be perfectly fine with that same person. But it just doesn't often happen that way. So hopefully that answers the question. But you know, today we'll remove that density so that we can, so that you can go forward without it. So let's talk about the process a little bit, and we'll do it, and then we'll continue from there. So basically. And it's too much to get into in detail about the history of how I came to do this or why I do it and such. There are a lot of YouTube videos where I go more in detail into it, and even some that Michaela channeled for me as well. Now, I come from a very left-brain background, so I don't believe in any of this stuff. But nonetheless, it happened anyway, and so I ended up here, and so I still take it all with a grain of salt and a little bit of skepticism because that's my background. So, but anyhow, when Barb came into my life and told me about my energy field, a lot of unusual things had happened in my life that I just sort of dismissed. So when she came into my life and told me this, it made me realize that those things that happened earlier on really did happen, and I had to take this seriously. So that's what prompted me to start doing this, purely as an experiment in the beginning. And then, of course, I met Michaela, and she channeled for me as well. And as it turns out, I came into this incarnation with this ability, and it's been operating in the background all throughout my life from birth onward. And I had an agreement with this 13th dimensional collective to allow them to use this physical body to facilitate this process. And so that's why all the unusual things have happened in my life, even before I had a conscious awareness of the fact that this was going on. It's because they were always doing this without my conscious knowledge of it until in recent years. So, so in speaking with them, they said basically, so simply, they're a 13th dimensional collective of many beings, ascended masters, extraterrestrials, and so on. And I did ask them once, well, why do you need me? Why don't you just do it yourself? You know, send the energy back and forth. And they said, because they're of a 13th dimension, they can't move that energy into the third dimension without there being a physical anchor here that can facilitate that process. So that's why I'm here. So I'm that physical anchor, and in order to do that, I had to prepare as a soul to be able to do that, and also this physical body had to be prepared to be able to facilitate. So essentially a conduit between the 13th dimension and the third dimension to allow for this energy to flow between both. So that is my function here, and I came into this life with the agreement with them to allow them to do that with this physical body from birth onward, and that I even without my awareness. So So part of what's going to happen here is I'm going to ask you to send your density to me. So if you're new to that process, that may seem a little strange. And most people who are energy healers and such would never do that because the majority of people are hypersensitive and it can cause a lot of harm if you take the density of another person. But because I came into this world with this intention, my physical body is not affected in that way. So you will send your density to me, which means that you don't have to take it home with you when you leave. And the 13th dimension, dimensional collective, will send an energy to you, which is of a higher vibration, intended to raise your consciousness, expand your energy field, and also whenever you receive energy from a higher dimension, it's not just energy, there's information that's multidimensional that's contained in it. And that information may not make intellectual sense to you right away, but over time, how it can manifest is your awareness of your reality may change. You will shift timelines. You may understand the universe in a way that you didn't before. Spiritual gifts could unlock themselves. So some people also have health benefits too. That has been pretty common over the years. But I'm not here for health, so I don't really talk about that. But whenever you change timelines and you shift consciousness to that degree, there are health repercussions that can occur as well. But my goal here in being here is not physical health, it's to help light workers to awaken to their potential and to go out into the world and be pioneers in this move toward a higher consciousness world. So that's what we're going to do here today. So I want you to trust the process. Don't worry about me. This is a unique opportunity that we have as a collective at this time because the Earth's consciousness is moving forward so fast, and therefore we need to have opportunities to be able to move with it. So when I ask you to send that density to me, don't worry about me, just be willing to participate. And then I'll be sending a white light to your heart centers to elevate your consciousness and expand your energy field and so on. And Barb said those who have been coming to our events monthly for many years, their auras are bigger than the room as they're walking in the room, when most of the time when they're brand new, they're very small, when they're first time coming here anyway. So there's a cumulative effect in this process that will happen the more often you participate. So come as often as you can, or in the very least use our YouTube videos, or come to the expo or whatever, because it'll take you another step further on your journey and help you to live a more full, vibrant life. Any questions so far about any of that? Okay. So do you want to talk about what you see in the room?
Well, we've got a lot of energy in the room today. We have a lot of green people. I see a lot of green healer people. Few other colors. There's some lavender and some yellows. I got a yellow one over. A nice new yellow one over here. And and the energy is like, some people are right through the ceiling, and some are like, closer to them. But the larger your aura gets, the more that even when people, one thing happens is when you come in a room, people they don't even know what it is, but they know if there's something different, and they can't figure it out. They don't, maybe a haircut or different kind of clothes or whatever. But when your aura expands, people are they know that there's something, but they don't understand what it is. So it actually is better for you. It helps you. It helps you with your knowledge. It helps you with like spiritual growth, but also I always think it makes you happier. Because with the expanding of your soul, your energy, aura, I think it's expanding your heart too, so that you are giving more love out to the world, and when you give something, you get it back. So it's just that constant, back and forth. So that's why I feel like energy transfers are really good, because you can shed anything that's negative that you don't have to carry that burden. You can just say, here you go. And then you get this beautiful white light, and it just when you feel it because I do feel it, and it just like it's so peaceful and so it just makes you want to smile inside, you know. So it's that's why I always am a positive thing, you know, about this, and from the very first time, and it hasn't changed. It just, you know, the people I've watched them change into more secure and more happy and more in touch with themselves, even if the people around them don't understand them. I mean, I have people around me. I mean, sometimes I think they're talking a foreign language, and I'm going, huh? You know, I mean, they're talking and they're trying to communicate, but you know, it takes me a while to shift back down. Oh, that's what you're saying. So, you know, it does happen that way. So, yeah. And then
Everyone online loves you.
Well, I love everybody too, you know.
Love you, Barbara.
Oh.
Barb's always a hit. So let's do the energy transfer, and then we can continue questions or whatever afterward. So whether you're online or here in person, just close your eyes and breathe comfortably. And we're going to go through the process. Barb will observe the room here physically and see when you've had enough, and she'll stop me. So don't worry about that. Just keep your eyes closed. And if you're online and you can't participate, then just follow along. The process will still occur as long as your intention is to participate. Just focus your intention on releasing any karmic density to me. And you can just simply sit there with that intention, and that's all you need to do. This 13th dimensional collective will facilitate the whole process and will pull that density from you. But if you want to be active in the process, you can visualize that density as a dark cloud of energy and just send it to me. And don't worry, no harm will happen in the process to me. And just keep doing that until I ask you to open your eyes. And at the same time, I'm going to be sending a white light to your heart center from the 13th dimension to raise your consciousness and vibration, expand your energy field, and so on. So I'm going to be silent now. I'll play a little music in the background, and we'll be back. I'll ask you to open your eyes when we're done. open your eyes when you're ready. Some of you may be energy sensitive and you might have felt something, and others of you might not have felt anything. Some of you might have had some emotional responses. Everybody's different and unique. Your physical bodies are different and your vibrational bodies are equally different. So everybody's physical experience will vary, but the change that you experience is all similar. So what you're primarily looking for in the next several weeks is an increase in your happiness level, which is a sign of less density and higher consciousness. But there may be other things you'll notice too, but in the very least that will be something to focus on.
I just, it was gentle today. You know, it was a gentle release. It was in waves. It was just kind of, okay, take it. All right, take it. You know, but it's very gentle, but powerful. I mean, it was like, okay, I'm going to release this, but I'm not going to go, choom. I'm just going to go, okay, I'm gently letting it go and letting this negativity that I need to release, and karma, density, whatever you want to call it. And it was just kind of like in waves. You know, I saw like 3 waves of it. And the first one was darker, then it got lighter, then it got lighter. And it was like, I just almost saw a conscious, relaxation from everybody. And that's why I was smiling so much, because I was like, wow, that's really cool. Every time it's a little different, you know, and I enjoy it because it's all new to me, you know.
Anyone have any questions or anything you want to say? No? Good. We have a question online for you. Tell us about your necklace today and the other gorgeous crystals you use.
Oh, well, this necklace, we have a lady that was at the expo. She's really good friends with Michaela, and now she's my friend too. Her name is Wendy. And she created this beautiful necklace for me, and I just, I just wear it all the time. I just absolutely love it. And it actually comes in, and it's got a lot of crystals, different crystals in there, almost every kind you could think of. And I haven't even had time to look at the list. But see, it comes apart, and then she has these beautiful crystals so that you can just match them, and you just kind of fold it over, and it creates this beautiful, appearance. And I love it. It's just so much wonderful energy. I vibrate every time I wear it. And my other crystals, I had a guy, his name is Warner, and he was trying to regulate my house. You know, he has that ability. Smart meters and stuff like that. He says, Barb, he says, I have such a hard time on your house. He says, because there's so much energy around. Well, I placed crystals and rocks in my front yard and my backyard, and I have 2 cases of crystals and rocks in my front room. I have some downstairs. I have some that I put in my bedroom. I just need to have, I call them rock people and crystals, that they just have places. I have one that was in where the hunt club was in Lapeer area, and it was actually a rock that the iceberg made carvings in it, and so it took 4 of us to get it out to my house, but I couldn't leave it in that field, so it just with the owner's permission, by the way. I don't take anything without the owner's permission. But
you're not planning on moving anytime soon, right?
Well, even if I do, I will only take the ones that want, everything wants to be there, and the ones that will follow me will go with me, and if there's important ones that I don't want to leave behind, but they'll be gifted to other people, So I gift a lot of my crystals and rocks all the time. You know that.
I am the recipient of mine.
Yeah, I had one that
My
took.
great delight.
I had one rock that told me that he wanted to go. I had already given her something, and I had given her some petrified wood, Michaela. And this other rock said, but I want to go there. And I said, okay, if you can move a little bit, maybe a quarter of an inch, I'll give her, to remove you and take you over there. And it removed that quarter of an inch. It really did. So I asked her, I called her right there. So there's a rock that wants to live at your house. Were you willing to accept it? And she said, yeah. So next time I saw her.
Or was it over a period of time?
No, it moved. Some of my rocks talk to me. Well, they all do occasionally, so they're like, oh, all right, But I had this. There was two things that one of two things that I wanted to give her, and one piece was a petrified wood, and the other was this other rock. So I decided on the petrified wood, but the other rock kind of whined. So I told it, I said, well, you really want to come, you'll have to move. So the next time I went outside, it had moved that much.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's what I got on the phone right away, and I said, this other rock wants to come live with your house. So, yeah.
And I'm always happy to take them. I'm always happy. I talk to them now, too. I ask it, do you like it here? Should I move you? Yeah, I know, and I get an answer. It's crazy, but I do. Barb taught me that, When I walk past, like, are you happy? They're like, yeah. Like, okay, cool. I have one outside, and I walk past it, and I say, do you think you want to come inside now? And it says, no, happy here. Okay.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? There's something online, I think. Can we protect ourselves with intention as we're around others? As I'm just sort of paraphrasing, there's some typos here, but as I feel around others without doing this, since we're always gathering density. Well, first of all, this process will change your energy field. So as your energy field expands, you sort of have a sort of built-in buffer. So for those of you who are healers or very hypersensitive, you'll find the more often you do this, the easier it is for you to be around other people or more dense energies because your energy field is expanding. So as it does, you kind of have this built-in sort of cushion around you. So you don't really have to intend, it'll just be there the more you do this. But certainly, personally, I don't think protection is necessary or even something that we should do. We're all one consciousness, so our energies are intermingling all the time. And I don't find that protection is really that effective as a concept. I look at it a different way. So we can live our lives one of two different ways. We can either put up walls and barriers so that we limit our experience, such as protection, or we can expand ourselves to our fullest potential, to which those barriers are not necessary because who we are is so powerful that there are no barriers that are needed to protect ourselves. So, in a similar way, like for me, I don't need protection. I can go anywhere pretty much and do whatever. And so it's not an issue for me. But that's sort of an unusual situation. But you'll find that as your energy field expands, though, you're going to experience, something on that similar to that, in that you don't really have to think about protection because you're becoming more and more of your full self. And as that happens, protection won't be needed. The reason people protect is because we live in a society where everybody's afraid of everything. And so we're constantly trying to put up barriers and walls to protect ourselves from everything else. Just be yourself and be yourself to the fullest potential of what that is, and it won't be needed. And that's what part of what this process does. As you're expanding your energy field, you're becoming more powerful yourself. And when you do that, there's no need for those kinds of concerns. So anyway, that hopefully answers the question.
I know this isn't really we're not really talking about astrology, but real quick, any words of wisdom? You don't want to talk about the eclipse?
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
There's supposed to be a lunar eclipse tomorrow. Yeah. I'm sure it could get really deep, but any just couple little things about it that we should maybe look for?
Gosh, I'd have to remember what that was. I think it's Monday, But
Sunday to
so
Monday.
Sunday?
To Sunday through Monday. And
Okay,
tomorrow.
I guess it depends on where you are in the world.
Yeah, maybe you
right?
can talk about even just for the year, the upcoming year.
Yeah. Honestly, I can't remember what that eclipse or what was in that eclipse, like what planets. So yeah, right. But with eclipses, you have to look at where all the other planets are too. So it's not just the sun sign or moon sign or whatever. But let's talk in general about eclipses, because we have eclipse that occurred earlier this month, which was a solar eclipse. There's another eclipse that's coming later this year, which is a solar eclipse, and this lunar eclipse. So it all kind of comes together. Well, there's no coincidence. For those of you who are paying attention to the financial system and the financial markets globally, they have been very unstable in the recent month or so. And generally, solar eclipses, you'll start to see their influence coming into being about a month before they actually happen, and then they continue. So generally, a solar eclipse will continue sometimes up to a year, the effect of that, or at least until another eclipse counteracts it. So now the eclipse we just had earlier this month, which was solar, was, if I remember correctly, it was a Saturn conjunction that occurred at that eclipse, meaning the sun was in relatively the same position as Saturn in the Earth's sky, and of course the moon was opposite it. I don't remember what else might have been there, but anyhow, that can. Oh, and I think right. Okay, and I believe the planet Pluto was also in that alignment. Well, all of this is leading to something. Next year, in 2020, there is an alignment between Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, and for about a week, Mars. And first of all, it's rare for those planets, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, to all come together in the Earth's sky. It's pretty uncommon. I've actually been watching that alignment for many years, waiting for it to come. Well, it is going to be, in one sense, for the conventional economic system and financial system, it will be a difficult period. And I think these eclipses that we're seeing this year, I can't speak to the lunar tomorrow because I can't remember what planets were in that alignment, but the two solar eclipses I do remember, because they both had alignments with Saturn, I believe. Certainly the one we just had did. And what we're seeing is a move in that direction. So a lot of people, when you have Saturn involved in an eclipse, people face karmic issues. Saturn is a very karmic in nature. Now, if it hits your chart, your birth chart in some way that's significant, then you may experience it more than others. But if it doesn't impact your own personal birth chart, then for you it may just be a minor thing, and you may just be aware of things happening on a global scale, but nothing major personally to occur. But what we can say in general is, on a global scale, a lot of people are working through karmic issues this year and early next, and many of those issues are going to play out through their financial situation. So the global markets will probably go through a major collapse in this next year, and a lot of companies are downsizing and will be downsizing in this next year. So many people are going to deal with karma through the financial system or things of that nature, but it depends on your individual chart how it manifests. For some, it may show up in other ways, but these particular eclipses are very karmic in nature. So that's not to scare everybody. The thing is, like things like this, and those of you guys who are functioning at a higher vibration, a higher consciousness, are not so much subject to those sorts of things. So it doesn't mean you're not going to experience or even observe things that are difficult happening in the world, but you sort of rise above it, because the astrology, to a greater extent, affects the third dimensional vibration than the higher vibrational. So the higher your consciousness goes, the less you're going to be affected by those things. And this is why a lot of, I did a astrology reading for a woman in India who's a highly regarded spiritual teacher, and so a couple of years ago, and I was looking at her chart, and there was this immense chaos going on in her chart, and I said, "Wow, you must be under a lot of stress right now," and she says, "No," and I said, "But your chart has just so much going on. And she says, well, that's just my life. I mean, I always have so much going on. And she says, but I'm always in this state of bliss. So this is somebody who has reached such a state of high consciousness that she's in a constant state of bliss, regardless of what's going on in her material life. Whereas most human beings who carry a lot of density and are at a lower consciousness, going through the same kind of planetary alignments, will go through immense suffering. So suffering is not required just because your planets happen to be in a certain place. It just happens to be that some people, because of their density or consciousness, they will undergo more suffering through certain kind of planetary alignments. Those who are of a higher consciousness don't possess as much karmic density. They don't, and so when they go through adverse alignments, whether they be planetary-wide or individual to you, you won't experience those things. So suffering in life is optional. It's not necessary. Challenges in life are required because you came here to grow and evolve and experience things. So challenges are required, but suffering through challenges is optional. It's just most people choose to suffer. So whether of their own conscious intention or because their vibration is such that they can't choose otherwise. So now I didn't come prepared with astrology charts to be able to speak in detail about those, but that's what I remember anyway. Ask me when I have a chart in front of me and I'll tell you more. Yeah.
Back to what you were speaking about with protection and whatnot. Like that speaks to me personally because 2 years ago I was like a social butterfly trying to have everyone's attention, and that would spread myself thin. My energy would be kind of like not enough for me to even like get by. And so now I'm very isolationist, and I tend to not talk to anyone pretty much at all, like very few people. And so how can you speak more to the idea that you were suggesting to kind of expose yourself like that to everyone in your daily meetings? And do you get what I'm saying? Kind of like being more out there and not letting it affect your energy.
Are we talking about energy or are we talking about interacting with human beings?
Both.
Both? Okay. Well, those are two different things. I, for my own journey, I talk to a lot of people all the time that I work with, interact with, running this organization. It's just part of my life. But left to my own, I'm kind of introverted. So I just do my own thing. I like peace and quiet. I don't really, I'm not like crazy about going to loud parties or loud events or loud music. Those things don't appeal to me. I am just, very quiet and private person left to my own. But my energy field does what it does. I don't worry about protection. So it's two different things, I think. I mean, a lot of brilliant people are introverted, and that's perfectly all right. So I think that's two different things. One is, just your desire and how to express yourself in life. Nikola Tesla was sometimes introverted. A lot of geniuses are introverted because they spend all their time locked in the basement doing crazy experiments, right? But so I don't think that in itself is a bad thing. But what I was referring to earlier was the idea that a lot of people, especially in the spiritual conversation, have that we must protect ourselves from everything and everybody, and if we're doing a healing. I don't think protection works, and I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's appropriate, personally. I think it's the wrong way of looking at things. I think a better approach is, as I said earlier, and I don't know if this speaks to your question, but don't live in so much fear of everything in your life and everyone in your life being able to harm you, because that's not really reality. It may be the reality in which you live, or a lot of people do live, but it doesn't have to be that way. Imagine if we lived in a world where everybody had a higher consciousness. So, I could wave my magic wand right now and everybody shifts to the fifth dimension. And suddenly we have different memories of, things that didn't happen in this reality. But imagine if that was possible. If we all function from a fifth dimension right now, then who would be thinking about protection? We wouldn't care about it, right? Because we trust everybody. We know everybody's at a higher vibration, and we know that only good things are going to come. We're living in that reality now. It's up to you to decide where you live. My world right now is this, 99% of the time, except for the brief times I have to go into third dimensional world. But it's not very often, so you can live in that world too. So if right now you're not living in a world where you can feel free to participate and not worry about how other people's energy fields are affecting you, then it's really more a factor of your own vibration than theirs. Because if your vibration or consciousness is sufficiently high, you're going to surround yourself with a different universe of people who are more fifth dimensionally based. Now, in this group, you probably don't worry about protection. But when you go out those doors, you probably do, right? But I don't have that experience, and many people in this group don't have that experience. I can tell you, probably Barb, Michaela, Zane, they don't have that experience as much as most people do, because we live in a slightly different version of reality, which all of you are entitled to do as well, but of your own choosing, not necessarily conscious choosing, but your vibrational choosing. You're choosing to exist in a world where you have to protect yourself, or you feel like you do anyway. But it's not necessary. But let's say you decide to live like we live, and you decide that you're going to live in this higher vibrational world where protection is not necessary. Well, that may mean that you're going to not be around certain people that you are now. So it's not really so much a question of being antisocial, but it's more a question of, as your vibration expands, you're going to be social, but with different people. People more like this than the average person you might run into, in the mainstream world. But in the next 10 to 20 years, that's going to change, and there's going to be so many people are going to elevate in consciousness. So we're at a very pivotal time. Many of you know, all the ancient prophecies are pointing to right now. And it, on the one hand, if you pay attention to mainstream media, it may seem like that's not even possible, but I can tell you it really is happening now. So,
I'll add something to that real quick while he's looking at questions. When you think about fear, just simply having to walk through fear in your life, it's the hardest thing to do. But when you actually make the decision to walk through it, you see how easy it really was. And I think I look at protection the same way. Like when we're in fear, everything seems dark around us, and everyone seems like they're passing on this dark energy to us. But the second we go towards that and we feel powerful enough to own that, right, that God, that power within, it really obliterates all of that other stuff. So it's really how you hold your energy that has more to do with, right, the attachment contract model and what you, right, have to concern yourself about than how you carry yourself. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. And what the guys have said, and I channeled a book where there's a whole paragraph about this, is that humans were never meant to use a bubble of light. Because imagine like how we were born as a one race connected to all things, plants and animals and other humans. And when you bubble your light, you're actually putting a conscious wall between you and information. So if you're waking up every day and bubbling yourself in light, you're creating a situation that is really not good for you, and especially for raising your vibration and your consciousness. Exactly. That's the other thing, right? Because you affect other people through that light, right? That aura.
Well, I wanted to share just a little short. I'm a storyteller, but all my stories are true. I learned sign language, from the deaf people. And I went to the hearing church, and I was signing for the first time for the deaf people and the hearing church. And I had this, all this nerves and stuff, and I was shaking. And the deaf people go, "What's wrong?" And Barb, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "I'm nervous." Just why? We love you. And if you don't remember to sign a word, just spell it. We'll show you. So you'll be fine. And from that point on, that was like a pivotal moment for my life where I pivoted, from being scared to being confident. Because before that, all these people are staring at you and you're doing something not familiar. It was very uncomfortable. But when the people are there and they're sending you their love and they say, it's okay, it's like a pivotal moment. It's where you change. So we're all sending you love, So just know that the people in the higher vibration are sending you. We're all sending each other love back and forth. Consciously or subconsciously, we are in this room. So you're getting that love. You're going to feel it with other people. So just a short little share.
Do you want to take that question about family? That doesn't really apply to me so much. Let's see. Where is it? What about people in your family who have a low vibration, close family?
Oh, is this in terms of protection?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's really the same thing. What I find is, this is the thing with family, I think, is when we get into the arguments about it, or when we feel the judgments of it, we lower our vibrations so that it does affect us. So I almost think with family, it's like it's really more about you than it is about them. And the way that you allow them to put you in a vulnerable position where you no longer trust yourself and who you've become, because that's when the lower vibration affects you. But, you're really meant to be there. Like, what Zane said, if you're bubbling yourself, you're not affecting other people. And you brought that high vibration to that family dinner, even though you might be the butt of all the jokes. It's the way that you meet that moment that allows that energy to shift. So I think it's the same thing, honestly. It's really all about how you carry yourself.
And I totally agree, because my family, we're 4 different directions. I have a Seventh-day Adventist, a Baptist, and then me, And so we're 4 totally different mindsets. But we all meet in the middle and we love each other. And it doesn't matter, and we can choose to talk about things or not to choose, But, I base it every time I go to my family, I love them. And unconditionally, it doesn't matter what they think, and if we're totally opposite on things, which sometimes we are, but it doesn't matter because that's so immaterial. The main thing is family and love. They're my family. I was brought in this earth to have these 3 other human beings. My sister, my 2 brothers. Even though I don't always see them, when I do, it's just all I do is I send love and I feel it back.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on why some of us feel huge tiredness and exhaustion, last week's depletion of energy, how we can fast regenerate it? That's probably a good question for you, right?
Well, it's really informational, I think, because we are, and this is what, if you missed my session, a lot of this came in the transmission, is that we're being inundated by information, and it's in non-physical, and it's Akashic information. And so when we have so much new information coming in non-physically, we have to integrate that, and it's exhausting on our physical, because our physical has to now catch up to the new speed of vibration of all of that information that's come in. So you have to rest. It's just a time where you really have to surrender that and rest, because you will fare far better if you surrender to it than if you resist it. And I know this because I am not a fan of resting, and you can't fight up against that. You just can't. So it's informational. I just say rest, drink more water. Because it's electromagnetic, the guides were is suggesting a lot of, just meditate, like simple things that we already know, like meditation practice. Acupuncture came in because we're utilizing the energy centers and meridians to help integrate that information. Meditation, of course. I think you really have to just listen to your body right now. don't fight up against anything. If you're like, I got to juice, I got to detox, but it feels hard to you right now, it's not the time to do it. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I've totally shifted my diet during this time to more grounding things, which are not usually in my diet, but for some reason felt necessary because my light body feels like it's floating a lot and I need something to bring me back to the planet. And I think a lot of people are feeling that as well. So you really have to go with what your body's telling you and listen.
Okay, another question for us. What about when we feel so much love and it's difficult to be normal?
What is normal? I think if you feel so much love, I think that's kind of like a state of bliss. Enjoy it, right? I'm always in love, I'm always, I just send, I send so much love out that, my sister and another friend of mine, while I was with them, and this lady, she felt it so strongly that she followed me through the whole store talking to me, and they're because she saw it and she needed it and she wanted to bask in it. So, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that whatsoever.
Okay. Anyone else? Any questions? No? Fully cooked? Do you have something to say? Oh, is that why you're holding the mic?
No, I just, by default, I'm holding the mic. No, I just wanted to add about that question about love and not being happy here. Another thing is we really have to deliberately search out the good stuff that's happening on the planet right now. And if you make an effort to do that, I think it really helps you. I saw an article that was posted. It was like New Year's Day, and it was a list of 100 positive things that actually happened on our planet in 2018. There were actually animal species that returned to the planet that were extinct. A number of them were listed, and I was like, I've not even heard of this. So I think so many of us are riding this high wave of energy and we're feeling that love, but we look around us and we can't validate it anywhere on the planet because it's hard to find. But, if you pay attention to what our organization is doing and a lot of other good people on the planet, that helps you to direct that love and really receive it back and to see where it's making an impact.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that some of you are feeling that state of love is good. It's the direction we're going as a collective. And, I think in our lifetimes, for most of you, if you're going to stick around a little while, you're going to see that the world moving more and more into a heart-centered space. A lot of children these days that we're interacting with in our groups and such. They're becoming increasingly telepathic these days, and telepathy is not possible without a heart-centered world. You can't have a bunch of people running around telepathic if we don't have a heart-centered world, because the kind of thoughts that most people think when they're suffering and not in that heart center would be a very chaotic world to live in. So, there's so many signs that this is happening. So for the individual who's experiencing this sense of love, it's good. So more and more people are feeling that way. You're not so alone in the world. It just feels that way because we're so separated, many of us, as we're awakening, and this is happening. Many of the people I talk to every day, they're awakening and they're in the middle of a pocket of unconsciousness in their environment because that's where they were living before. So it just takes a little while to find others like you and to align, with that. And but as we go forward, you're going to find more and more people are in that heart-centered space.
Well, even me, I had somebody in my space that was very mainstream and very, practical. And the first time I told them about chemtrails, no, there's no such thing. But 10 years later, they're 180 change. They believe in the chemtrails and a lot of different things that I've been telling them for years. They woke up. So, I mean, people can wake up. It's just like wake up.
Michaela mentioned in a previous channel about a polar shift. Today I read an article about the polar shift, that the pole moved essentially over to Siberia from Canada already, but the article can't be released because of shutdown stuff. Is this probably the government, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
Is this what she was talking about, and did it already happen?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to see more of this. The polls
It's
are
an
going
ongoing shift.
to. Yeah, I think it's going to be a while yet until they find their place and are anchored and solid. And I think our mainstream, scientists are pretty baffled by that. So I'm not surprised if they're shutting that information down, because if they can't really justify something, it's, I don't know.
Well, I mean, but NASA's been reporting on the polar shift for the last couple of decades. It's been
Oh yeah, I mean
the pole is shifting. I mean, it has been shifting for a while. North Pole is not on the North Pole anymore.
Yeah. Well, this is just the result of that energetic shift that we talked about for so long in 2018. But I don't think it's going to stop for a little while. Right. And it's kind of like last year. We had the energetic turbulence within the Earth last year, and now we're seeing it above the crust of the Earth and in our physical collective reality. It's just, the result.
Yeah, I mean, as the shift occurs, we're going to see just huge things happening on the planet that are going to change. Just like a lot of mass awakening is happening these days. Usually when polar shifts occur, that as they've occurred in the history of the planet, which, they generally occur many thousands of years apart. And most of the time they occur all of a sudden, which is very catastrophic. But in our time, it seems to be happening very gradually, but over a period of decades. So it's obviously not going to be catastrophic, but clearly it's going to change everything on the planet. So, science is reporting the same things that Michaela's channeling about in terms of polar shifts. So it is happening. It's a real, tangible thing. So I think, it's very exciting to consider what the repercussions of that will be on a planetary scale as that continues. But yeah, that is what she was talking about. But it has been going on for a while, and it's not going to end anytime soon. We have to wrap it up soon, but there's one question that you probably should take, Michaela, because you have this. Why so much ear ringing?
Yeah.
That happens to you all the time, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been experiencing very painful ear ringing the last couple of days, actually. It's hard to, I think it's hard to quantify that for everybody because everybody's so different and sensitive in different ways. I mean, it can be when we're becoming more telepathic and we're accessing our extrasensory gifts and abilities, our ears are going to ring, and that's just simply a shift of dimension going on. And it does happen to me all the time. Like I will get ear ringing when I have messages coming in or I'm raising dimension to connect with some information. But this can also be man-made frequencies as well. And I can tell the difference because it's extremely uncomfortable when it's coming from a negative source. And we have a lot of that going on right now. But remember, when the planet is shifting, the electromagnetic fields in the planet actually will amplify these things. And so a lot of people have had disturbances in sleep and discomfort in the ears. And it's really because even those that, like, especially if you're extremely sensitive to Wi-Fi and electromagnetic fields, that you're feeling it that much more because of that. So what's going on in the earth is actually magnetizing all of that stuff right now. So it's hard to say. I think everybody's different in how they tune into it and why.
Zane's going to be up next. He's all the way over here from Chicago. He toughed it out through the crazy weather just to be here with us today. It's very extraordinary, his story and his amazing gifts and abilities. So we'll be taking a 15-minute break before we start back up again with him. So come back in a few. There's snacks in the hallway, and we'll see you guys in a bit.